I evicted my parents on a Tuesday morning, while the coffee was still too hot to drink. The sheriff stood beside me on the porch, shifting his weight, pretending not to listen as my mother cried into a handkerchief she'd borrowed from my sister. My father wouldn't look at me. He kept his eyes on the hydrangeas, the ones I'd paid to have planted 5 years earlier, when they said the yard looked tired. I remember thinking, so this is what silence sounds like when it finally wins. But that wasn't where the story began. Not really. It began when I was 7 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of overdue notices spread out like a losing hand of cards. My mother was on the phone with the electric company, her voice sweet and apologetic. My father paced behind her, muttering numbers under his breath. And my sister, Emily, sat on the counter swinging her legs, eating a yogurt she'd asked for and received without question. "Go to your room," my mother said to me, covering the receiver. "You're making this harder." I hadn't said a word. That was the first time I understood my role. Emily was the golden child. I was the burden. It showed up in small, precise ways. Emily's piano lessons were never late. Mine were canceled quietly after 3 months because we just can't afford extras. Emily got braces at 13. I was told my crooked teeth gave me character. When I needed a new winter coat in middle school, my mother sighed and said, "You grow too fast. It's not practical." Emily got a new one every year, tags still crisp. Money was always the explanation. Money was always tight, because of me. When I was 14, my father sat me down at the dining table. He folded his hands, knuckles white, like he was about to deliver a sermon. "We've had to make sacrifices," he said. "Having 2 kids? Well, it's expensive. And you're not exactly low maintenance." I remember staring at the wood grain, following a dark knot with my eyes. I wanted to ask what I'd done to be so costly. Eaten too much? Breathed too loud? Emily walked by then, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Dad, can you transfer me the money for the school trip? I need to pay today." He smiled immediately. "Of course, sweetheart. Give me your phone." That smile never reached me. By the time I was 16, I started working weekends at a grocery store, bagging groceries, stocking shelves, breathing in the smell of overripe bananas and disinfectant. My first paycheck was $93 after taxes. I brought it home and laid it on the counter, proud. My mother looked at it for a long moment. "Well," she said, "since you're working now, you can start paying for some of your own things." I waited for her to say school supplies or clothes. Instead, she added, "Your share of groceries would be fair." Emily never paid a dime. When college acceptance letters came, mine arrived thin and hopeful. A state school. Partial scholarship. I held it like it might disappear. My parents sat across from me, serious. "We can't help you," my father said. "Emily's school is, well, it's an investment." Emily was going to a private university. Tuition was more than my entire 4-year cost. I worked. I took loans. I slept 4 hours a night and learned to stretch ramen into something almost edible. I didn't complain. I didn't ask. I learned early that asking made things worse. After graduation, I didn't move back home. I rented a studio with a window that looked directly into a brick wall. It was mine. That mattered. The years passed. I built a career slowly, stubbornly. Promotions came. So did raises. I paid off my loans. I learned what it felt like to buy groceries without doing mental math in the aisle. My parents called more often then. "Your father's back is acting up," my mother would say. "The roof needs repairs," she'd mention casually. "Emily is under so much stress," she'd sigh. Emily married well. A lawyer. Big house. But somehow there was always a reason she couldn't help. When my parents fell behind on their mortgage, I didn't hesitate. I transferred the money the same day. "It's just until we catch up," my father promised, not meeting my eyes. I believed him. Over the next few years, just until became a pattern. Property taxes, medical bills, a new furnace. Each time I sent the money. Each time my mother said, "We don't know what we'd do without you." What she never said was, "Thank you." I bought the house outright when the bank threatened foreclosure. The paperwork was complicated, the kind that made my head ache. My father waved it off. "It's all just formalities," he said. "You know this is still our home?" I nodded. I wanted it to be true. At family gatherings, Emily would joke loudly about how I was the responsible one. "You've always been good with money," she said once, clinking her wine glass. "Not like me." Everyone laughed. I smiled because that was easier than explaining the cost of that goodness. The day everything cracked started like any other. My phone buzzed at work. My mother's name lit up the screen. "We need to talk," she said. Her voice was tight. "Today." There was something underneath it then. Not urgency, not fear. Decision. I told my boss I needed the afternoon off. As I drove to the house I technically owned, I felt a familiar knot settle in my stomach. The one that always came when I hoped, stupidly, that this time would be different. When I pulled into the driveway, Emily's car was already there. That was when I knew. I sat in the car for a full minute, hands on the steering wheel, watching the front door. I could hear laughter drifting through an open window. Light. Easy. Like nothing was about to break. I took a breath and opened the door. I had no idea that by the end of that conversation, everything I believed about my family and my place in it was about to collapse. When I walked into the living room, the first thing I noticed was how everyone avoided my eyes. My mother sat on the couch, hands folded too neatly in her lap. My father stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, jaw set in that familiar way that meant he'd already decided the outcome of the conversation. Emily leaned against the armchair, scrolling on her phone, like this was an inconvenience she'd been dragged into. "Sit," my mother said, patting the cushion beside her. I didn't. "What's going on?" I asked. My father cleared his throat. "We've been talking as a family." That word, family, felt sharp. Emily finally looked up. She gave me a small, rehearsed smile. The kind you give a waiter when your order is wrong but you don't want to cause a scene. Mom took a breath. "We're making some changes." I waited. "The house," she continued, "has become complicated." I glanced around the room. The furniture I'd helped pay for. The framed family photos where I always stood slightly off to the side. "What kind of changes?" I asked. My father stepped forward. "We're transferring ownership." The words didn't land right away. They floated, harmless, until my brain caught up. "To who?" I said. Emily straightened. "To me." The room went quiet, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I laughed once, short and surprised. "That's not funny." No one laughed with me. "You can't," I said, my voice dropping. "The house is in my name." My father's mouth tightened. "It won't be for long." That was when the air changed. I felt it in my chest, like pressure building. "What does that mean?" I asked. My mother reached for my hand. I pulled it back. "We assumed," she said carefully, "that you'd understand. Emily has children now. She needs stability. A legacy." "A legacy," I repeated. Emily crossed her arms. "You're single. You don't even live here." "I paid for this house," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Too calm. "I saved it." My father shook his head. "You helped, but it was always meant to stay in the family." "I am family." My mother flinched like I'd raised my voice. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make this emotional," she said. "We're talking about practical matters." I felt something cold spread through me. How exactly do you plan to transfer it? Emily exchanged a look with my parents, a look that told me this had all been decided before I arrived. Dad said, "We've already spoken to a lawyer." The floor seemed to tilt. "You went to a lawyer," I said slowly. "About my house." My mother nodded. "We didn't want to burden you with the details." That word again. Emily stepped closer. "Look, you've always landed on your feet. You're good at that. This is just balancing things out." Balancing. I thought of every envelope I'd opened late at night, every transfer I'd made without asking questions, every time I'd been told to be patient, to be understanding, to not make things harder. "You forged something," I said. It wasn't a question. My father's eyes flashed. "Watch your tone." "Did you forge my signature?" I asked. Silence. My mother stood abruptly. "After everything we've done for you?" I stared at her. "What have you done for me?" Her face crumpled, offended. "We raised you." And reminded me every day how expensive that was. I said quietly. Emily scoffed. "Here we go." I turned to her. "You knew about this." She shrugged. "Mom and Dad explained it. Honestly, it makes sense." "Makes sense to take something that isn't yours?" She smiled thinly. "It was never really yours. You were just holding it." Something inside me cracked then. Not loudly. Just a clean, quiet break. My father moved toward the door. "We didn't call you here to argue." "Then why?" I asked. My mother's voice was small. "We need you to sign some papers." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came. "You want me?" I said, "to sign away my house." My father nodded. "It's the right thing to do." "And if I don't?" The room felt too tight, too full of people who suddenly felt like strangers. My mother's lips pressed together. "Then we'll have to proceed without your cooperation." "That's not possible," I said. "You can't—" "We can," Emily cut in. "The lawyer said it's doable." I looked at her, really looked, the way she avoided specifics, the confidence that didn't belong to her. "What else did he say?" I asked. Emily hesitated. "Just a beat too long." My father said sharply, "That's enough." But it wasn't. Because in that hesitation, I saw it clearly for the first time. This wasn't desperation. It wasn't fear of losing the house. It was entitlement. They weren't asking me to help anymore. They were telling me my role was over. My mother sighed, rubbing her temples. "You're being difficult." Difficult. I felt my throat tighten. "This is my worst day," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "And you're calling me a problem." My father's expression hardened. "Don't be dramatic." Emily muttered, "God, you always do this." That was when my mother said it. Softly, tiredly, like she was stating a fact. "You've always been a burden." The word hung in the air, heavy and final. No one corrected her. No one took it back. I nodded once. Slowly. "Okay." I walked out without another word. No one followed me. No one called after me. Outside, I sat in my car and stared at the house. The windows glowed warm in the late afternoon light. From the outside, it looked peaceful, whole. I didn't cry. Not then. I didn't know it yet. But what they'd done, what they thought they'd done, had left a trail. And I was finally going to follow it. I didn't go back to work that day. I drove until the city thinned out, until the roads widened and my thoughts had room to move. I parked by a river I used to visit in college, the one with the cracked concrete steps and the slow brown water. I sat there with the engine off, hands resting uselessly in my lap. "You've always been a burden." The words replayed, not loudly, but persistently, like a drip you can't find the source of. By the time the sun dipped low, something else had taken their place. Not sadness. Focus. That night, I didn't call anyone. I didn't text. I let the silence stretch. For once, I didn't rush to fix anything. The next morning, I took a personal day and opened my laptop at the kitchen table. The same table where I'd once signed documents trusting smiles and vague assurances. I started with the house. The original purchase agreement was still in my files. I remembered the day clearly, how my father had waved his hand and said, "Just sign where they tell you." I'd been tired, relieved, proud even that I could help. I pulled the documents up slowly, reading every line this time. My name was there, clear, sole owner. I exhaled. Then I opened my bank records. Years of transfers, each labeled carefully. Mortgage support, property tax, emergency repair. There was more money there than I liked to think about. A quiet, steady stream flowing out of my life and into theirs. I created a folder on my desktop and named it simply House. Next came the emails. I searched my inbox for my mother's name. Hundreds of results. Requests disguised as updates. Just keeping you in the loop. Didn't want to worry you. One email stopped me cold. It was from 2 months earlier. We spoke to someone about restructuring. There are options if things need to be adjusted. At the time, I'd skimmed it and replied with a thumbs up. Now I read it again. Slower. Spoke to someone. Not thinking about, not considering, already spoken. My phone buzzed then. A text from Emily. "Mom says you left upset. You didn't have to storm out." I stared at the screen. The audacity of the word storm almost made me laugh. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to the county records office. The building smelled like paper and old carpet. A woman at the desk looked bored but kind. "I'm looking for recent filings on a property," I said, sliding the address across to her. She typed for a moment, frowned, then turned the screen slightly toward me. "There was an attempted transfer," she said. "Incomplete." Attempted. My pulse quickened. Attempted how? "Documents submitted without all required signatures," she replied. "Flagged and rejected." I swallowed. "Whose signatures?" She glanced at the screen. "Yours, for one." The room felt suddenly very quiet. "Can I get copies?" I asked. She nodded. "Of course." The papers were warm from the printer when she handed them to me. I sat in my car afterward, reading them line by line. There it was. My name? In handwriting that wasn't mine. A careful imitation, slanted just enough to look convincing if you weren't looking closely. But I was looking. My hands shook, not with fear, but with something sharper. Something clean. They hadn't just planned to take it. They'd tried. That night, I slept for the first time in days. Deep. Dreamless. The silence from my family stretched on. No calls. No apologies. Just the occasional group text about trivial things. Emily's kids' school play, a dentist appointment. I didn't respond. Instead, I hired a lawyer. He was older, with reading glasses he kept pushing up his nose. He listened without interrupting as I laid everything out. The money. The house. The forged documents. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "They committed fraud," he said calmly. Hearing it stated so plainly felt surreal. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I thought of my mother's voice. Tired, certain, a burden. "I want the truth on record," I said. "And I want them to stop." He nodded. "We'll start by securing your ownership. Then we gather everything." Over the next week, my life narrowed to documents and details. Bank statements, emails, texts, timelines. Then came the recording. I almost missed it. Buried in my phone was a voicemail from my father, left the morning after I'd walked out. I hadn't listened to it then. I'd been too raw. I pressed play. His voice filled the room, low and irritated. Look, we didn't mean for you to take it like that. The lawyer says if you just sign, this all goes away. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You owe us that much. I replayed it. Once, twice. The lawyer listened, eyes sharpening. That's coercion, he said. And evidence. I felt something settle in my chest. Not relief. Not yet. Clarity. A week later, my mother called. I watched the phone ring until it stopped. She left a message. "We're worried about you," she said. "This distance isn't healthy." I deleted it. Another call came. Then a text. "We need to talk like adults." I almost replied. Old habits tugged at me. The instinct to smooth things over, to carry the weight so no one else had to. Instead, I forwarded everything to my lawyer. The final piece came unexpectedly. A thick envelope arrived in my mail, no return address. Inside was a copy of my parents' updated will. Emily's name appeared again and again. The house is listed as hers. And beside my name, nothing. No explanation, no acknowledgement. Just absence. I sat at the table, papers spread out. The afternoon light slanting across the floor. For the first time, I didn't feel small reading it. I felt awake. They thought silence would wear me down. That I'd come back. Apologetic. Ready to sign whatever they put in front of me. They didn't realize the silence had done the opposite. It had given me time. And soon, I was going to use it. The confrontation didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened in a room full of people who thought they knew us. My mother insisted on a family meeting. That was the phrase she used in the group text she finally sent when silence stopped working. We need to clear the air. Everyone should be there. Everyone meant extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even a few longtime family friends who'd known us since I was a kid. The kind who still said things like, "Your parents did such a good job with you girls." The meeting was scheduled for a Sunday afternoon at my aunt's house. Neutral ground, my mother said. Fair. I agreed immediately. That surprised her. I could tell by the way she called me 10 minutes later, her voice suddenly cautious. "You'll come?" she asked. "Without lawyers?" I smiled to myself. "Of course," I said. "Just family." When I arrived, the house was already full. The low hum of conversation spilled out onto the porch. Someone laughed inside. Someone else clinked a glass. My mother saw me first. Her face flickered. Relief, then irritation, then something like fear before she smoothed it away. "You came," she said, touching my arm like we were close again. I nodded. "You asked." Emily stood near the fireplace, arms folded, jaw tight. She didn't smile this time. My father sat stiffly in an armchair, staring straight ahead. People greeted me warmly. "How are you?" "Your mom said you've been distant." "You look tired, honey." I took a seat when everyone settled. My aunt cleared her throat. "Your mother said there's been some tension," she began gently. "We thought it might help to talk it through." My mother clasped her hands together. "We just don't understand why you've shut us out," she said, looking directly at me now. "After everything we've done." There it was. The familiar framing. The room leaned in. I felt my heart beat once, heavy and steady. "You want to talk about that?" I asked. My father shifted. "We don't need to make accusations." "I agree," I said calmly. "Let's stick to facts." Emily rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic again." A few people chuckled awkwardly. I reached into my bag. The sound of paper sliding against paper was louder than I expected. "I bought the house," I said, placing the first document on the coffee table. "Here's the deed. Sole ownership. My name only." My mother frowned. "We know that." "Do you?" I asked. I placed the next document down. This is the attempted transfer filed 2 months ago, rejected because my signature was forged. The word forged landed hard. My aunt gasped softly. Someone said, "What?" Emily straightened. "That's not—" I placed another page down. "Here's a comparison of my real signature and the one submitted." My father finally looked at me. His face had gone gray. "That's a serious accusation," he said. "So is fraud," I replied. The room went quiet. My mother laughed nervously. "This is a misunderstanding." I nodded. "I thought so too. Until I listened to this." I pressed play. My father's voice filled the room, unmistakable. "If you just sign, this all goes away. You owe us that much." Someone inhaled sharply. I didn't look at him. I watched the faces around the room change. Confusion turning into discomfort. Then something sharper. "That sounds like pressure," my uncle said slowly. Emily's face flushed. "You recorded Dad?" "It's a voicemail," I said. "He left it." My mother stood abruptly. "You're humiliating us." I met her eyes. "You called me a burden." A ripple moved through the room. "She didn't mean it like that," Emily snapped. My voice stayed level. "Then how did you mean it?" Silence. I continued, gently now. "For years I paid. I helped. I believed I was supporting my parents. But behind my back, you tried to take the house and give it to Emily." "That house belongs in the family," my mother said weakly. "I am the family," I replied. No one argued. I placed the final document on the table, the will. "This arrived last week," I said. "Updated. The house is listed as Emily's. I'm not mentioned at all." My aunt covered her mouth. Emily looked at my mother. "You said this wouldn't come out." That was the moment. Not the papers. Not the recording. That sentence. Every eye in the room turned to her. My father opened his mouth, then closed it. I stood. "I didn't come here to yell," I said. "I came to end this." I looked around the room, meeting each face. "I'm pursuing this legally. Ownership is secured. Any further attempts will be met formally." My mother's voice shook. "You'd really do that to us?" I felt a strange calm settle over me. "You already did it to me," I said. I picked up my bag. "This is the last time I'll explain myself." No one stopped me as I walked to the door. Behind me, the room buzzed. Low voices, questions, disbelief. Outside, the air felt lighter. I sat in my car for a moment, hands on the wheel, breathing. For the first time, the truth wasn't just mine to carry, it was theirs to sit with. And I was done holding it for them. The silence after the confrontation was different from the ones before it. It wasn't heavy. It didn't itch under my skin or pull at old instincts. It just existed. Clean. Undemanding. For 3 days, no one contacted me. Then my father tried. I watched his name light up my phone while I stood in the grocery store, deciding between 2 brands of bread. I let it ring. When it stopped, I felt something close to relief. The lawyer handled the rest. Formal letters were sent. Boundaries were drawn in language that didn't bend or soften. Any further attempts to alter ownership would result in immediate legal action. Occupancy would need to be addressed. That was the word that finally did it. Occupancy. My parents had never thought of themselves as occupants. The house was theirs by entitlement, by habit, by the simple fact that I'd never said no. Until now. My mother left a voicemail 2 days later. Her voice was quiet, careful. "We just need time," she said. "After everything you've done, we deserve that." I deleted it. The eviction notice went out the following week. Proper, legal, unavoidable. When the day came, I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I stood on the porch with the sheriff again, hands folded, watching as my parents carried out boxes of their lives. Emily didn't come. My mother cried. My father looked smaller than I remembered. Neither apologized. At one point, my mother looked up at me and said, "I hope you're happy." I thought about it. Really thought. "I'm at peace," I said. She turned away. After they left, the house was quiet in a way I'd never heard before. No television murmuring, no footsteps, just the sound of my own breathing. I walked through each room slowly. The living room where decisions had been made without me. The kitchen where I'd once been told to go to my room for existing. The hallway lined with photos that told a story where I was always peripheral. I took the frames down. Not angrily, not dramatically, just deliberately. A month later, I sold the house. The market was good. The timing was better. When the papers were signed, I sat in my car afterward and laughed. Once. Softly. Not because it was funny, because it was done. Emily sent one last message. I hope it was worth destroying the family. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied. The family was already broken. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. I blocked her. Extended family reactions came in waves. Some apologized. Some avoided me. A few tried to negotiate reconciliation on my parents' behalf. I declined politely. I didn't explain anymore. With the money from the sale, I bought a smaller place. Quiet. Sunlit. Mine in a way nothing ever had been before. I painted the walls a soft gray. I bought a couch I liked. Not one that would hold up better. I planted herbs on the windowsill and watched them grow. Sometimes, late at night, I thought about the word burden. How heavy it had once felt, how easily it had been handed to me. Now it felt foreign, like a label from a past life. I wasn't a burden. I had been a resource, a solution, a convenience. And when I stopped being those things, the truth surfaced. That truth hurt, but it also freed me. On quiet mornings, coffee cooling beside me, I realized something else too. The unbearable silence I'd feared, it never came. What came instead was space, and for the first time in my life, I filled it with myself.